I think there's a lot of reasons, but it has to do with how I came into the PCA. I was raised Episcopalian. My wife was raised in a conservative congregational church. And so when we got married, we had to decide what we wanted to be. And we started looking around at all the various church options. And we went to a Presbyterian church, and everywhere I went, I could find a loophole, a question they couldn't answer. And we got to the PCA, and someone, not me, but someone was able to answer all the questions. There were no loopholes. There was a system of faith that seemed to fit together. And that was very appealing for me. We didn't have to create doctrines to fill loopholes. And to a large degree, once that was explained to me, and I really appreciated that and talked with my wife, and we just sort of, Joanne and I looked at each other and said, it feels like home. And, you know, even today, when people visit my church, I say, when you answer all the questions and figure out the programs, that at some point, it's going to feel like home or it's not. And that will have a big influence on your decision. And for us, the PCA felt very much like home. And, you know, we visited at one time and haven't left. And that would go back to 1982. So it's home. I think there's a lot of benefits to the new funding plan that we don't hear about a whole lot, and I'm going to try to get that word out, but let's look at it from a big picture. We say we are a connectional denomination. This plan actually increases our connectionalism. It works with the churches and the presbyteries and the General Assembly, and it emphasizes the fact that we are connected at all these different levels, and nobody operates independent of the others, but it is an interdependent system. And so I think there's always a concern in the church as a whole of how do we stay connected? And this plan actually helps us to do that. It binds us together as churches and presbyteries and at the denominational level. The second thing is I think it's going to increase participation. That's my great goal for the plan, is to see more churches and more people involved, particularly our smaller churches. We hear, you know, one of the biggest reasons that people say they don't come is because of cost. Well, if you're a smaller church, you can now send your teaching elder and your ruling elders for dramatically less cost. We try to take the other factors. There's travel costs involved, and we can't control those, but we do deal with them. You know, General Assembly moves around to be in different geographic areas. Hopefully it gets closer and easier for other people to come to. We change the dates based on cost. Last year, we had a late date because it was cheaper to do it then. This coming year, Virginia Beach, we're going to a beach town, so we have an earlier date because it's more affordable to do it then. If we did it later in the month, it would cost more because you're competing with all the tourists. So we do try to keep that in mind. But for the actual fee of going, for our smaller churches, this is dramatic reduction. It makes it much more affordable, where they may only be able to afford to send their teaching elder in the past. Now they can send 2, maybe even 3 people at less cost. So it's going to increase participation, and it's particularly, we did this in mind, with increasing the participation of our smaller churches, which make up a great deal of the PCA. And I get sort of animated about this. The small churches are a vital, important part of the PCA. We need them involved. We want them involved. And we want them to participate. The other factor is ruling elders. We want more ruling elders involved. We want ruling elders to come. We don't want it to be just a teaching elder convention. Now, there's some issues with ruling elders that we understand are very difficult. You know, they may have to take vacation time from work, and they don't want to take that away from their family. But again, the number one reason we hear is cost, and this makes it much more affordable for our medium-sized and smaller churches to send those ruling elders who are available to go. And so we're hoping that this will be an incentive for greater participation by our smaller churches and our ruling elders in particular. It's a vital concern that we keep the church of every level, every geographic area, of every size, of every economic group. We want to keep them involved. They're all important parts of the denomination. And so we've made a deliberate plan to increase the participation of those medium-sized, smaller-sized churches, and particularly an encouragement to our ruling elders to participate. The third thing that I would say is this is going to increase the communication. Anybody that's been in church for any amount of time knows you can't communicate too much. And this is going to force us at the denominational level to communicate with the presbyteries and the local churches far more than we do now in both directions. If the local churches have an issue, they're going to be more inclined to talk to us, particularly if they have a greater financial commitment. As churches make a financial commitment, there's going to be more oversight. There's going to be more communication. They're going to be more involved. It's just like in the local church. The people who are financially committed in the local church are the ones who are most active and most participate, most involved in the life and activities and programs of that church. They have a commitment to it. They have ownership of it. And this helps all of our churches to have more ownership in what the PCA does. I think at every level. There's stories of guys who came for the first time to General Assembly and saw how it worked, and they went back and said, I need to get on a presbytery committee. I want to be involved with MTW. I want to be involved with MNA. And so as we see people get involved at one level, they just naturally start to get more involved at the other levels. So I really sense that there's going to be increased communication of every kind across the board. And I think that's a good thing for us. And last, I think there's increased transparency. With financial commitment comes oversight. So there's going to be more people looking at what we're doing, how we're spending the money, are our ministries effective, are we being efficient in how we run those? That's all good as we get people involved. And there's more transparency, on the local church too. That they're going to have to submit, their statistics, and we're going to trust them to have integrity in the process. And where churches are having difficulties, where they may not say anything now, we're going to have a system in place where they can seek help from their presbytery, they can seek relief from some of the fees and costs from the denomination, where we actually have to talk to each other about what's going on, because it may not be just a financial issue. They may have a financial issue because of some other ministry issue, and we may be able to help them out with that. When people have a reluctant to commit financially at the local church, it's usually because they have a financial problem. It may be they don't understand biblical giving. It may be they're upset about something we're doing. Good communication, you can graciously address all those issues. You can provide financial counseling. You can deal with whatever it is that's bothered them, whether it's a program or a personality conflict. Good ruling elders and teaching elders can meet with them, work those issues out. Sometimes it's just a matter of teaching about biblical giving and what's involved. When you transfer that to the denominational level, churches could have financial difficulties. Well, there's folks at their presbytery and at the denominational level that may be able to offer good advice and counsel to help them out of that. They may be upset about something. There may be something they don't like, and now they've just sort of opted out and been quiet. Well, this forces the communication, and maybe something at the denominational level we didn't realize was upsetting people. It may be something that once it's explained, it's much more understandable. So it's very healthy to increase communication for our church. Our churches don't really have a problem, I sense, with understanding biblical giving, but they do in understanding the connectionalism that's inherent in Presbyterianism. You know, we have a responsibility to the presbytery, and the presbytery has a responsibility to the church. And we have a responsibility to the General Assembly, the denominational level, and they have responsibilities also back to the presbytery and to the churches. And a lot of folks, it's my sense, just don't understand those connections and how they work. And this is going to bring a lot of that to light. And hopefully by increasing our sense of connectionalism, increasing our participation, increasing our communication, will bring about more transparency in how we do business at every level of the denomination. And again, I think those are good and healthy things for us across the board. And so I'm very encouraged by that, and I'm very hopeful by that. I find this a very faith-forward movement. We have to move forward. We have to exercise faith in what is God going to do. And we have to realize that we're not enemies. We're all part of the same team, the same denomination, and we have to work together. And I think this plan, from the big picture perspective, makes a lot of that more likely to happen. And so that's what I'm most excited about the plan, is that it's going to bring us closer together as a denomination. And from where I sit, I think that's a good thing.